As other countries are challenging U.S. leadership in space, this conference report includes funding for a comprehensive, independent assessment of NASA's strategic direction and agency management to chart a future course that is bold and achievable. I urge support for the bill and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Washington.
I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, the ranking member of the Appropriations Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science, Mr. Fattah.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, I thank the ranking member and I thank the chairman of the full committee. And most importantly, I thank my colleague, Chairman Frank Wolf. It has been we've had an opportunity to work through the issues on this bill, and he has afforded every courtesy to the minority as we have worked through this. It's been truly a bipartisan effort, and even though there are things that we would make different final calculations on, I think that there's nothing else to be said other than that truly this is a product that reflects both input from the majority and the minority, and I thank Chairman Wolf and Chairman Rogers for the courtesies extended. This is a bill that I believe funds the most important agencies of our government in terms of securing our citizens, in terms of innovation and advancement and technology and science, in terms of dealing with the challenges of severe weather and dealing with our oceans and the navigation of crafts throughout our waterways. This is a bill that is critically important, and I'm happy to join with others to urge that the House would favorably consider it. There are a number of things I would want to point out. One is the conferees, all of us working together, were able to agree with an initiative focused on brain research, on neuroscience, and we've been able to put together a collaborative effort that I think portends a great deal of progress in terms of addressing brain diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, dementia, also dealing with the question of wounded warriors. I had a chance to visit the Brain Research and Repair Center over at Bethesda. There's much more work to be done. And also for those interested in education, the whole cognitive development. So this is the first of its kind initiative bringing together all of the important agencies of the federal government. And I thank Chairman Wolf and our colleagues and counterparts in the Senate for their cooperation around this. Also, we were able to increase our efforts in terms of manufacturing and advanced manufacturing, creating a new grant program to help companies bring technology onto the plant floor. Manufacturing has to be the basis for long-term prosperity and national security for our country. The investments in science, the National Science Foundation, there's no more important an agency anywhere in the world, and we were able to work to fund it at a level that's appropriate, $7 billion. The investment in NASA, even though $638 million off of last year's number, when you take out the shuttle costs, it really is a significant statement around a new set of priorities for NASA, and investing in particularly space technology at $575 million, and the investment in the Commercial Crew Program, knowing with a certainty that American private enterprise can help us deal with the ongoing needs in terms of lower orbit travel. We have a lot to be thankful for in the bill, and most important to me, even though it's a small number, is the efforts around youth mentoring, our support for the 4,000 Boys and Girls Clubs and the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and the other youth mentoring agencies that are funded in the Justice Department is a way to divert young people from ever getting engaged in our criminal justice system, in the funding for the Second Chance program, which was renewed in this year's appropriations. So there's a lot more that I could say, but I think needless to say what is important now is that we move this process forward. And there are disappointments, legal services, there'll be another day. As my ranking member said, we're disappointed in the final outcome, but we remain committed to trying to find ways as we go forward to make sure that people have access to our court system on civil matters. So I want to thank the ranking member, thank Chairman Rogers, and my colleague Frank Wolf for his great work on this bill, and all of the staff, both on the majority and minority side. Thank you. And I preserve the balance of my time.
Does the gentleman yield back?
Yeah,
To the gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the chairman of the Transportation and HUD portion of this bill, a very vital part of the bill. The chairman has handled it very, very well. Chairman Tom Latham.
The gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the Speaker. I thank Chairman for yielding time, and I first of all want to thank him for the great work, but also Ranking Member Mr. Dix, the full committee, and a special thank you to the Ranking Member on the subcommittee, Mr. Alver, for all of his hard work, and we've worked together on it as a team on this bill. Thank the staff on the minority and certainly the majority staff for all their hard work that they put into this. This is a great day for 2 different reasons. One, we're going to get this bill done today, and number 2, it's on the Speaker's birthday, so this will be his present anyway. But I do rise in support of the conference report that's before us today, and I urge my colleagues to support it also. I know it doesn't make everyone happy, but it represents a compromise, and that's what a conference report really is all about. Overall, the T-HUD division of the agreement contains $55.6 billion in discretionary, a number that is $19.4 billion below the President's request. And again, $19.4 billion below the President's request. The agreement provides $39.9 billion for the annual spending on highways, a number that's contained in the last extension of the Surface Transportation Act. This level will provide adequate resources for our state highway departments to address their needs. The T-HUD division contains various common-sense agreements that are universally important to the nation. For example, there are increased funds for the FAA certification personnel, the individuals who inspect and certify new aircraft to ensure safety and airworthiness. The HUD portion of the T-HUD agreement contains $37.3 billion, or about $4.7 billion below the President's request. There is sufficient funding to renew vouchers for those individuals and families who are in the program last year. The agreement has sufficient funding to keep veterans housing on a sound footing, and it also has directive language that requires HUD to review veterans housing utilization rates in Iowa and other rural states and the housing challenges facing veterans in those areas. Also, under the HUD title, there are funds set aside for home ownership programs that help add housing capacity in rural states. The subject of rural housing capacity has long been a concern to states like Iowa and a concern to an awful lot of members here in this Congress. Finally, under HUD community development, there's $400 million that can be used for eligible disaster recovery activities in those areas most impacted by the various disasters this year. These are funds that can be used for repair and rebuilding activities. To me, at this point, one of the most important elements of this agreement is the funding for highway and community development disaster repairs. These monies are vitally important for my state and others along the Missouri River, states that suffered enormous damage when the Missouri River flood came this past year. Can I get 1 more minute? That'd be all right.
I yield the gentleman 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman. The conference agreement contains almost $1.7 billion in emergency disaster money to repair roads and bridges. These funds will supplement existing federal, state, and local monies and will be used for repairs and reconstruction. There are areas where state roads are still underwater. Thus, the emergency repair funding for highways in this agreement is vital to ensuring that Iowa roads in other states are restored to good working conditions. Important to the emergency highway repair category contains an agreement is an important waiver that waives the timeline of 180 days from the disaster declaration so the states can receive 100% reimbursement. All in all, the agreement represents the best we could do under the present circumstances. In the end, we've had to come to make some compromises, but we also have a number of important victories in this agreement, and I would urge all members to support this conference report. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Washington.
Yeah, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, the ranking member of the Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. Mr. Olver.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the ranking member for yielding time. I rise in support of this conference report. As ranking member on the Transportation and Housing Subcommittee, I would like to thank Chairman Tom Latham for working openly with me throughout the process, and I congratulate him on bringing his first conference report to the floor. Also, I would like to thank staff. For the majority, the subcommittee clerk, Dina Barron, and her excellent staff, and for the minority, Kate Hallahan, Joe Carlisle, and Blair Anderson, all for their diligence and hard work in making this a better bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill contains elements with which I disagree. In particular, I wish CDBG funding was closer to last year's level, and I'm disappointed that the bill does not provide funding for the high-speed and intercity passenger rail program. Both of these programs are in high demand and would contribute significant value to our communities if funded properly. However, this bill is a reasonable compromise that has improved significantly the transportation HUD portion that was marked up in subcommittee. The agreement ensures that funding for our transportation infrastructure programs is kept stable, allowing the Federal Aviation Administration to continue modernization of our air traffic control system, providing Federal Highway Administration with funds needed to maintain our highway network, and providing the Federal Transit Administration with sufficient funding to continue to invest to expand our regional transit systems. I am particularly pleased that the bill provides $1.4 billion for Amtrak and removes destructive language that would have halted service along 26 routes in 19 states. Annual ridership on those routes has increased, and a congressionally authorized process is already underway to reduce the operating costs of these services. In addition, the bill provides $1.66 billion for the Highway Administration's relief program, emergency relief program, in order to eliminate backlog of repairs needed as a result of hurricanes, floods, and other natural disasters, as well as $400 million for emergency CDBG funds. I believe we have a responsibility to provide assistance to states that have endured unanticipated natural disasters without conditioning that assistance on cuts to other programs. Lastly, I'm pleased that this bill reinstates HUD's housing counseling program, providing $45 million. With foreclosure rates remaining high, the counseling services provided by this program continue to be vital for families who are struggling in the current economy. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a good product of a bipartisan process, and I urge my colleagues to support it, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the chairman of the Agriculture Subcommittee, a very important part of this bill, Mr. Kingston.
Gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank Chairman Rogers for the time. I've enjoyed working with him and Ranking Member Dix, and also the ranking member of our subcommittee on Agriculture, FDA, and Commodity Futures Trading Commission, Mr. Sam Farr. We've held 11 hearings, and we had probably about 25 hours worth of debate on the floor, in which over 50 amendments were offered. This bill is a prime example of what can happen when we get back to regular order. It was an open process passed by the subcommittee, full committee, and then finally by the House floor. The bill is $350 million below FY11 in the discretionary portion, and $2.5 billion lower than the President's request for FY12. It is compliant with the Budget Control Act and a step to show both regular order, compromise, and moving us towards a balanced budget. I also wanted to point out something, Mr. Speaker, that the mandatory portion of this bill is tremendous. Our discretionary total in agriculture is $19.77 billion, but the mandatory is $116.9 billion. School lunch and breakfast and the SNAP program are $98.5 billion alone. If we do not get control of the mandatory spending, we will never be able to balance the budget. So I urge all members of Congress to be cognizant of that and work in the important authorizing committees to do some of the reform. This bill was successful in eliminating a federal program that goes back to World War I, the mohair subsidy, and that actually was a program designed to get more wool for the World War I soldiers' uniforms. And Ronald Reagan famously said, if you don't believe in resurrection, try killing a government program, and yet today the mohair program does get eliminated. We also reduced the BCAP program, which was something that our committee has been very concerned about, the out-of-control spending on it. We restrained the CFTC with some important bipartisan language regarding user exemptions and cost-benefit analysis. And we have urged the FDA to stay on its core missions. And we hope that the authorizing committees will look at medical device and drug approval time and transparency so that the FDA can work closer with the providers and the manufacturers rather than in an antagonistic point of view. We've balanced school safety, inspection, ag research with the many demands that are out there. We have worked with Secretary Vilsack, Dr. Hamburg at FDA, and Mr. Gensler at the CFTC, and we've had an open process throughout the year. So I urge my colleagues to vote for this and pass this bill, but I also wanted to say thank you to the great staff on both sides. Martin Delgado, the head clerk on the majority side, along with Tom O'Brien, Betsy Bina, Andrew Cooper, and Allie Thigpen, and Mike Donnell. And then on the minority side, working for Mr. Farr, Martha Foley, Matt Smith, Troy Phillips, and Rochelle Dornett. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Washington.
I yield 4 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from California, the ranking member of the Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee, Mr. Farr.
Gentleman is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much for yielding. I want to thank my co-chair, the chair of the committee, we heard from, Mr. Kingston. We get along very well, and it's wonderful to work with him. But I'd also like to thank the chair of the committee, Mr. Rogers, and ranking member, Mr. Dix, for letting us do our work in a professional manner, a professional and intellectual manner, which I think is the way we want to have political compromise. And you allowed us to do that work, and I think that this report is a good report, and that's why I'm asking my colleagues to support it. I didn't vote for the original bill, but this conference report is much better, and that's why I urge its support. There are many good things about this bill, especially in comparison to the version that originally passed the House last summer. I was very pleased that we were able to go to the Senate level for the Food and Drug Administration, which is an increase of about $334 million over the House bill, because to increase the funding of FDA's important work on medical countermeasures. That is very important. I mean, medical countermeasures is critical to America's ability to face down biological, radiological, and other similar widespread public health threats. Without it, we'd be vulnerable to germ warfare, and it's why I advocate its robust funding. I might add, this isn't just science fiction that we see in movies. This is real, and this program is really vital to our future security. In the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, particularly in the domestic food programs, remember, this is the biggest program in America that deals with the war on poverty. And it's very good what we've done in here. This prevents hunger, improves nutrition, and grows healthier people in this country. This conf report actually provides $36 million more than the Senate level for the WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children program. It increases $570 million over the House bill for low-weight babies and for those kinds of programs that will grow healthier babies, healthier people in this country. Then there's a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which we used to call food stamps. Many people may not realize it, but the SNAP program serves 15% of our fellow Americans during these difficult times. 15% of Americans. Over 40 million Americans are now dependent on food stamps. That number is up by $7 million over last year, 7 million people over last year. Why? Because of the economy's downturn. It's created a lot of hardships for families. That's why the funding level for the SNAP program is so very, very important, and why I'm happy that the funding level is a lot more than it was in the original House bill. This is also good news for the working class and distressed families of the United States. Then we have a program in the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which is also the Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program. We've also funded that at a higher level. This is good news because it helps programs for particularly the elderly who have suffered a debilitating life event like a tornado or a flood or disaster, and they need access to food and nutrition outside of the regular system. I'm so glad we were able to beef up these domestic programs for food assistance. Then we have the international programs that help our international allies who need food assistance. In the Food for Peace program, there's a well-known McGovern-Dole program which provides donations of agricultural commodities and financial technical assistance for feeding nutrition projects in low-income countries, countries that suffer from the culture of poverty, which could lead to all kinds of distress and certainly even to where we have to send in troops to bail out these countries. So this is a good prevention. The conference report gave a lot more than what was in the original House level. There's a lot of good in this conference report, but frankly I have to say that there's one part that I'm really disappointed with. Under the Dodd-Frank program, we tasked to construct regulations to protect consumers. The President asked for enough money to get the new review process up and running.
I yield the gentleman 30 additional seconds.
And we didn't give it enough.
30 seconds.
Thank you very much for yielding. And we didn't give it enough money to do that. And then in the last thing, we dropped some crazy part into this program, which I think it's gotten a lot of negative attention this week and deserves it, and that is that we, without any discussion or going to the rule, it predetermines that the new regulations on tomato paste and tomato puree and sodium can be part of the school nutrition program. They didn't consult with us. That's wrong, and it shouldn't be done. But it's a good compromise bill. It's good and means food for Americans. It means certainty for our farmers. It means help for the hungry around the world. I ask my colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to a very distinguished member of our committee, Oklahoma's Mr. Cole.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. There's certainly members on this floor that are a lot more knowledgeable about this particular piece of legislation than I am. I don't serve on any of the relevant subcommittees on appropriation, and so they're going to talk about it in more depth and detail than I ever could. But I tell you what, certainly I would be the first to say that we did not have a perfect process. I would have preferred individual bills. I think most of us on the Appropriations Committee would. And we didn't cut as much money as I would have liked to have cut. Having said those things, I want to really congratulate our chairman and our ranking member for beginning the process of restoring us to regular order. And I want to commend them for bringing in a bill that spent less money than we spent last year, that has important elements in it that protects gun rights and gun ownership, and that frankly is a very serious effort to deal in a very responsible way with a large portion of our government and at the same time attack our larger fiscal problems. Now we're going to hear a lot of members over the course of the debate that think that the bill spent too much money, and others that think that it spent too little money, and others that tell us that it's not perfect in every detail. And I would just remind those individuals on both sides of the aisle, we are the House of Representatives. We're not the House of Commons. You know, some of our members sometimes seem to think that all legislative and all executive authority resides here. It doesn't. Our framers set up a very different system, and we deal with a United States Senate that's controlled by a different political party, and we obviously have a president, our president, but a president of a different political persuasion than the majority of this House. And that necessitates compromise. That necessitates some give and take. I think the process that has been worked, if you will, by the chairman and by the ranking member and by the various subcommittee chairmen and their ranking member counterparts has been a good and productive effort at compromise. And it's achieved real results, and it deserves real and will have real and genuine bipartisan support. So I urge the passage of this important piece of legislation. I thank the chairman and I thank the committees for their hard work, and let's get back to the business of governing the greatest country on the planet. We made a good step here today.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Washington.
I yield 3 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Massachusetts, the ranking member of the Financial Services Committee, Mr. Frank.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Washington. I urge members to vote for this bill, although my enthusiasm is tempered. As I contemplate this bill, I think of the words of a former great member of this body, a former Speaker of the House from my home state, the late John McCormick, who, not wanting to offend House rules, referred to one of his colleagues as someone whom he held in minimum high regard. That's essentially what I think about this bill. I thank my colleague from Massachusetts, Mr. Oliver, for the good work he did on an important provision that means a lot to public housing in Massachusetts involving federalization. I appreciate the increase in the FHA being maintained so that the people who live in the areas I represent, in California and elsewhere, are not discriminated against. And so for that I am grateful. But there is a serious flaw in the bill in 2 areas, or there are 2 serious flaws in 1 area each. The HUD budget is good in that federalization, but severely lacking. I regret the fact that we will be spending more on community development and building important institutions in Afghanistan than we are in America. And even more important is the issue that the gentleman from California, Mr. Farr, mentioned. It is incredible to me that my Republican colleagues brought out of their subcommittee a bill that would give the Commodities Futures Trading Commission less money this year in the coming year than it got this year. Now, the Senate was able to bring it back up to level funding. Understand, we are talking about derivative regulation. We're talking about AIG. We are talking about a dangerously unregulated operation. We are talking about the thing that has us concerned now about the extent to which there may be a contagion from Europe to America because of derivatives, credit default swaps issued by American banks. And I think we have a handle on this, but we would do better if we had the bill fully implemented. I read today, you can read today in the New York Times, about the role of the CFTC trying to straighten out the MF problem. It is extraordinary that we give the Commodities Futures Trading Commission a new responsibility because of prior foolish moves by this Congress and the President. We had not regulated swaps, a very important new form of derivative. They are a dangerous instrument and they need to be regulated. And this is a wholly new responsibility for the CFTC. And the members of the Appropriations Committee on the Republican side would have given, if they had their way, less by a significant amount for the next year than this year. We got it up to even. But let's be very clear. People who do not want to give the CFTC any additional money are basically telling the American people that they think it was just fine what AIG did. It was just fine that we have these unregulated derivatives, that people were able to accumulate debts far beyond what they could pay. The CFTC is also given, under our legislation, a specific mandate to deal with speculation. I know there are some on the Republican side who think speculation has nothing to do with oil prices and it has nothing to do with food prices. And I think the evidence is clearly to the contrary. People who can tell me that these ups and downs of the oil market are purely because of supply and demand, I wait for them to describe to me when Santa Claus arrives. The fact is that regulating derivatives is an essential part of preventing the problems that we ran into a few years ago and we are now trying to prevent. And by level funding the CFTC, and level funding only because our Senate colleagues insisted on overcoming a Republican effort here to give it less money in the coming year than in the current year, is a terrible act of irresponsibility. I hope that we will be able soon to remedy this. But I fear that what you do with this, Mr. Speaker, in this legislation is to open us up to the kind of irresponsible, unregulated financial behavior that led to the greatest crisis we've had in so many years.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, a member of the Conference Committee, Mr. Carter.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise as a proud member of this conference committee and as of this committee. The Constitution of the United States gives us instructions that we are to watch our Treasury and protect it and make sure that the money that we spend out of that Treasury is appropriate for the operation of this country. Chairman Rogers and the three ranking members who have operated in this particular minibus have been very noble in that effort. A commitment was made under the Budget Control Act that we would stay within $1.043 trillion, and this first start of finishing this appropriations process will see to it that we meet that commitment. Chairman Rogers has been very, very distinct and positive that he will meet that commitment, and this is the first step to meeting that commitment. It is important that all know that this is a noble effort. We have funded what is needed, and we have given an open process both in subcommittee, committee, and on this floor. And by that, we have shown the American people that we are making our promises known, that we are on the route to turning this country around and setting it back on a fiscal track that we can sustain. I want to commend all who have been involved in this process, both the ranking members and the chairman, for they have done noble work to come up with this product, and this product is deserving of being supported by every member of this conference and of this entire Congress, and I urge them to support this noble product that has been a tough fight, but we have accomplished it.
The gentleman yields back.
I yield back.
The gentleman from Washington is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Maine, Mr. Michaud, who is I've enjoyed working with on these important issues before our committee.
The gentleman from Maine is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for yielding. I rise today in support of a provision in the underlying bill that will move the heaviest trucks traveling in Maine off secondary roads and onto the interstate. People in the state of Maine already know the benefits of this common-sense provision. That's why it has the support of organizations throughout the state of Maine, such as the Maine Department of Transportation, the Maine Department of Public Safety, the Maine State Police, because they know it's safer to have these trucks on the interstate. Additionally, letting heavier trucks use the interstate reduces fuel consumption, cuts emissions, reduces travel time, and reduces the competitive disadvantage between Maine and the surrounding states that already have a higher truck weight limit on their interstate. So I'd like to thank my colleagues that supported my efforts to ensure that this provision was included in the final bill, and I would encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this bill, and I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for their efforts as well. I yield back to balance my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, could I ask the remaining time?
The gentleman from Kentucky has 11 minutes remaining.
And the other side?
The gentleman from Massachusetts has 5.5 minutes remaining.
I thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Ohio, a member of the conference committee, Mr. LaTourette.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 2 minutes.
Well, I thank both chairmen for yielding and also for the recognition. And, you know, Mr. Chairman, it's like a breath of fresh air has blown through this chamber. I will tell you that what a relief it is, and congratulations goes to Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Dix and the subcommittee chairs and the ranking members for getting us to a point that was normal practice for the first 12 years that I was here, and that is we'd do things like have a subcommittee markup. People would get to offer amendments, good amendments, bad amendments, in-between amendments, but they were thoughts that they had. We would debate them, we'd discuss them, we'd vote on them. Same thing happened at the full committee, same thing happened on the floor. And we actually had a conference between the House and the Senate, and some people had never been to a conference before because they hadn't been here that long. I had members come up to me that were new. We have 87, 88 new Republican freshmen, and we even have some sophomores and juniors that didn't even know what the 5-minute rule was for the discussion of an amendment on the floor. And so everybody in this chamber understands that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but at the end of the day, if you've had a chance to express yourself and articulate why your position is correct, and it's either accepted or rejected by your colleagues, you can go home and put your head on the pillow and feel pretty good about it. This product is a result of that, and I'm particularly proud of the piece that the subcommittee that I'm involved in, with Mr. Latham as the chair and Mr. Over as the ranking member. And what is remarkable to me is that this wasn't a my way or the highway negotiation. There were numbers that were important to some of us and not important to others that were improved between the House version and the conference report. And I would cite, for instance, the highway level. Now, because no one is willing to make the adult decision about what to do with the income stream at the Highway Trust Fund, it was proposed to be a paltry $27 billion. However, through negotiation between the House and the Senate, it's now restored to the authorized level in the extension at $39 billion. The Community Development Block Grant Program as well is recognized in this conference report as being a valuable source of seed money for local communities to add other money and do good works, something that is popular and unpopular in certain segments of both sides of the aisle. Amtrak is now receiving the money necessary to do their mission. They've done a good job, and I urge its passage.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to a member of the conference committee, the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Bonner.
The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding me 2 minutes. You know, back home, the American people listen to members of Congress talk about things that are historic, things that are important. Today we're talking about something that's very important. Tomorrow we'll actually be talking about and voting on something that truly is historic. But for the moment, let's focus on, as my friend from Ohio just mentioned, something that this Congress has not seen since 2009, and that's a conference report. That's the American legislative system working, where Democrats and Republicans, senators and members of the House of Representatives have come together to produce a perfect document? Of course not. Conservatives would like to cut more. Liberals would like to spend more. But the fact is that in this conference report, we cut and terminate 20 programs, saving $456 million. It addresses responsibly disaster spending, where many states and even more counties and cities have been affected by disasters earlier this year. And it contains a CR that will run until December 16th at FY11 levels to allow our committee to complete its work. It also represents an effort, I would argue, Mr. Speaker, that both House and Senate appropriators, Democrats and Republicans alike, are doing something that's responsible to avoid the plague of a government shutdown by reaching agreement that will put our nation on a more fiscally sustainable path. Now, tomorrow, it will be more historic in nature. Yesterday, the debt clock ticked over $15 trillion. We cannot ignore that threat. And yet tomorrow we will bring to the House floor an opportunity for something that Presidents Jefferson and Reagan both envisioned, a balanced budget amendment. Today's CR, today's minibus appropriations bill is an important step for the future of this fiscal year and this country that we love and serve. Tomorrow will be an opportunity for the legacy of future generations not yet born to do something even more bold. I thank the chairman for giving me an opportunity to serve on the conference committee, and I urge my colleagues to support the report.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Florida, a member of our committee, Mr. Diaz-Balart.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I thank the chairman for this opportunity, and I really congratulate the chairman. This is the first time in many years, since 2009, that we've actually been on the floor, come to the floor with a conference report. Think about that. Before, things just kind of came out of the blue, and we were forced to deal with them without having the opportunity to see them, without going through the regular order. This would have not happened without the leadership of our chairman, Chairman Rogers, and I cannot thank you enough, sir, for once again bringing the People's House, making it do its work and doing it in a responsible way. I also want to commend the ranking member for working hand-in-hand with the chairman. Look, there is no denying that we are on an unsustainable path of borrowing too much and spending too much. And in the past appropriations bills, they were judged to be successful by how much more money they were spending. How much more money of taxpayers we were spending. That's how we knew that, I guess, we felt good. Congress felt good because we were spending more money. Well, that's changed dramatically. This bill actually cuts funding. It actually spends less than the previous year's level. So again, a huge step in the right direction. But it also funds the essential services that the American people depend on. I want to recognize the work of Chairman Kingston and Wolf, who have balanced funding for the necessary food safety and other federal law enforcement, for example, but also made some very difficult choices, but necessary choices to reduce spending. I have the privilege of serving on the Transportation and Housing Subcommittee. I want to commend Chairman Latham for the work that he has devoted on this bill. On the transportation side, this bill prioritizes rail and transit projects that improve and expand existing systems. It funds NextGen to help reduce traffic delays, and it funds the Federal Highway Program. It provides sufficient funding to renew every individual and family voucher, for example, and include new oversight reforms at HUD to root out waste and fraud and abuse, which is such a huge issue. This conference report prioritizes government spending for vital programs, but it also reduces waste and, again, puts us on a path that we will not bankrupt the United States of America. I urge our colleagues to join me in supporting this fine piece of legislation. Is it perfect? No. But it's the best piece of legislation and the only one in many, many years that has actually come to the floor through regular process after an amendatory process. I commend the chairman and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Mississippi, a member of our committee and a very valued member, Mr. Nunley.
The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of this historic freshman class, we came here committed to cut government spending because we know that cutting government spending is tied directly to increasing job opportunities in this nation. This bill does something that has not happened since World War II. For the second year in a row, we are now on the path to cutting government spending, not by the definition traditionally used by Washington, cutting the rate of growth, but by the definition used by the people of America, actually cutting spending. But we also came here to change the way Washington does business. President Reagan observed, government programs, once launched, never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on earth. This conference report terminates a total of 20 programs from the federal budget. Now, I wish it would have cut more spending, but when I look at the opportunity to cut 20 programs from our federal budget, something that rarely happens in this town, I gladly support this conference report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your work. Thank you for the ranking member and the minority for working with us to eliminate those 20 programs. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New Hampshire, Mr. Bass.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you, and Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the conference report, which includes the CJS approach bill for fiscal year 2012, and I want to pay special thanks to Chairman Wolf for his help in working out a very difficult problem. In 2010, a federal prison was built in Berlin, New Hampshire, in my district. However, due to lack of funding, the facility has sat idle now for a year and a half at significant cost to taxpayers. And I applaud the inclusion of report language that urges the Bureau of Prisons to begin the activation phase of this prison in Berlin, New Hampshire, and others where construction has been completed, but the facilities currently sit idle. Additionally, I'd like to thank Mayor Grenier in Berlin for his dogged determination and my colleagues on the Appropriations Committee for their special attention to this very serious problem. Once opened, this prison will house over 1,000 minimum security and medium security adult male offenders. It will produce over 300 jobs for the region and bring $40 million to the local economy. It is a very worthwhile program. I thank you for being attentive to this issue with me. I urge final passage of the bill, and I yield back my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
May I inquire the time remaining?
2.5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I'm the remaining speaker on my side, so I would yield to the gentleman.
How much time do I have?
The gentleman has 5.5 minutes remaining.
All right. I yield myself as much time as I may use. I just want to say that I think this is a bill that we've worked hard on, we've worked with the other body, and I hope that the members will support this bill. And I want to remind everybody, this has got the CR in it. We got to keep the government open. It's clean as anyone I've seen. And so I hope that we can pass this bill with a very strong bipartisan vote. I'm urging my colleagues on the Democratic side to support this bill. I want to again congratulate the chairman and all of our staff for the work that they've done on this bill. It's a good bill. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than the alternative. And we need to keep moving on these appropriation bills. I hope we can pass the other 9 in December, and we have to do that. So I yield back my time, the remaining time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the balance of the time.
Gentleman is recognized.
And I want to say a special thanks to my friend Norm Dix for being a hard-working, cooperative ranking member. We worked together on this bill, and we will continue to do that. And also to thank the staff. You know, they don't get enough thanks. These are the people that do practically all the work, day and night, weekends included, holidays included. So thank you to all of the staff, majority and minority, for producing this work. Let me close, Mr. Speaker, by emphasizing that this conference report is only the first step toward finishing fiscal 12. And I urge my colleagues to support this conference report. Let me also remind our colleagues that there are no earmarks in this bill. A lot of people said you cannot pass a bill without earmarks. Well, this bill has no earmarks, not a one, not a single one. It also reduces dramatically federal spending. And when we finish, and I want my colleagues to hear this plainly and clearly, when we finish all 12 bills, we will be at $1,043 billion, not a penny more. We will be at $1,043 billion as provided by the cap under the Budget Control Act. I guarantee that number. I guarantee that number. Hear me. So I urge and I vote on this first step toward fiscal sanity. Yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Pursuant to House Resolution 467, the previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the conference report. Pursuant to Clause 10 of Rule 20, the yeas and nays are ordered. Those in favor of the conference report will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote. Should I keep going?
The House has been debating the conference report for the spending minibus. This includes fiscal year 2012 spending for agriculture, commerce, justice and science, and transportation and housing and urban development. It also includes a continuing resolution which keeps the government funded through Friday, through the middle of December, so that Congress can complete work on the remaining 9 spending bills. This is final passage. It's a 15-minute vote, and we hear more about the bill from a Capitol Hill reporter. We are joined by John Shaw of Market News International. This first group of spending bills to fund the federal government in fiscal 2012 comes up for a final vote today on the House floor. How's that vote expected to go?
Well, I think it's likely to pass. There's been so much chaos and confusion around fiscal policy this year. They're running very late on the appropriations process. The new fiscal year began 6 weeks ago on October 1st. It feels like there's finally some positive momentum, and this passage of this mini spending bill, the 3 spending bills put into one package, would represent maybe the first real tangible accomplishment. So I think both sides have some incentive to make sure this passes. I think think the failure of this spending bill, which, as you mentioned, also includes a stopgap spending bill funding the government, would be pretty disastrous. So I think the leadership will make sure that it does pass.
And why do they have to include that stopgap in this?
Well, the current stopgap spending bill expires tomorrow, and it's needed because Congress has passed none of the 12 regular spending bills for the 2012 fiscal year, so they've been running on stopgap bills. The House Majority Leader Eric Cantor said earlier this week that he hopes the one that they will pass today that will extend until December 16th is the last one, and they can just get the 9 final spending bills done.
Well, there was supposed to be also a second package of spending bills. The Senate had started some work on that, but those plans have faltered. What's going on there?
Well, yeah, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, thinking that there was a little bit of positive movement with the earlier package of 3, tried to put together another package of 3 and move it through the Senate this week. There was all sorts of objections to various components of the bills, so his attempt to move that package has basically failed. He set that bill aside. The Senate's working on the defense authorization bill, and I think what that was sort of a tantamount way, or that was an indirect way of conceding that the final burst to get these spending bills finished, the final 9 bills, are probably all going to have to be put into one big omnibus package.
Any particular group of lawmakers that you're watching as the vote comes up this afternoon? Any fireworks expected?
Well, I don't know fireworks, but the conservatives are uncomfortable because this package emanates from an earlier budget agreement between the White House and congressional leaders, and conservatives believe that it contains too much spending. They think the broad package allowed for too much spending, and they see this as sort of a manifestation of that earlier agreement. So there'll be some reticence on the part of the conservatives to vote for it. But as I say earlier, I think the leadership really needs to have this bill pass and start getting a few accomplishments racked up.
Well, assuming House passage this afternoon, when's the Senate expected to take it up, and what's it look like over there?
Well, the Senate Majority Leader said earlier today that he expected the House to approve this bill late tonight, and he said that he'd like the Senate to do it, if possible, tonight, but he thought more likely Friday. I suspect there might be a little bit of toing and froing and some debate, but I think there is a broad desire to get this bill passed. And plus, the stopgap funding bill expires Friday night, so I believe that they really will find a way to pass it in the Senate tomorrow.
John Shaw of Market News International covering the spending debate in Congress. We thank you for that update.
Thank you.
And this is the final vote on the so-called minibus and the continuing resolution. John Shaw mentioned that if it passes here in the House today, it goes over to the Senate. Meanwhile, the Senate, throughout the day today, has been debating the 2012 Defense Authorization Bill. Language in that bill on detainee provisions expected to be thoroughly debated in the Senate. It's underway now. You can follow that on C-SPAN 2. Here in the House, following this vote, we expect the House to begin 5 hours of debate on the balanced budget amendment, the amendment that was the vote that was mandated as part of the debt agreement, which was signed in August. The House will vote on that, and the Senate has to vote on it, too, before the end of the year. They'll begin debate on it, but it's likely they'll finish work on the balanced budget amendment on Friday morning.
On this vote, the yeas are 298, the nays are 121. The conference report is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Enter.